Duello Crapula by Blackledge. Henry's car rumbled as it passed over the cattle grid on the southern border of his estate. He clutched the leather seats either side of him, leant forward into his protruding belly, and emitted a low, involuntary groan. He burped in a descending glissando, and the stale taste of cognac ballooned into his mouth. The chauffeur glanced curiously at the rear-view mirror, to which Henry returned a woozy but stern glare of his own. Jackson, Henry's saturnine majordomo, was looking over some documents in the passenger seat. He tilted his head to call to Henry without turning back. "Feeling all right, sir?" he asked in his familiar, motherly brogue. It was clearly a stupid question, but Henry threw a reassuring wave to the front of the car. He had been awake for 35 minutes, and since then, Henry had been preoccupied with exactly two tasks. One, to keep from throwing up, and two, to remember what had happened last night. He had been at the club. Of that he was sure. There had been the usual crowd: Chuff, Boris, Cricky, Symmo, Pendelbury, Whittingslow, Barclay. Barclay. Was there something there? An argument? He couldn't remember. It couldn't have been a fight, as Henry didn't have a bruise on him, and of everyone he was by far the most feeble and least truculent. Then what? Jackson had woken him up at dawn by throwing open the heavy bedroom curtains and laying a silver breakfast tray on the bed, where it sat waiting for Henry to climb up from the floor where he had slept. He'd finished his quail's eggs and soldiers, and changed from his crumpled tux into the outfit that Jackson had laid out for him: tweed and tartan. A practical but vaguely ceremonial look. It was only once dressed that Henry asked, why was he up so early? "Well," Jackson had said, "the Clayton copse is only a few minutes as the crow flies, but the roads will take a little longer." "Crichton copse?" Henry repeated into his orange juice. "Cricky? Good old Cricky? What could be there? Another party, perhaps?" It wasn't unheard of. But there was something about Jackson's manner that didn't sit right. It wasn't just that he was sombre, he was always sombre, but he carried himself with a touch more decorum than usual, as if they were about to host some very important guest. The car hit a bump, and Henry gave another burp in syncopated baritone. He called to the front of the car, "Will you please drive with a little more precision? Benjamin, sir," offered the driver. "Yes, Benjamin," said Henry, as if agreeing. "Only just had this bloody car restored." "Sorry, sir," said Benjamin, without a hint of apology. Jackson was making notes in a leather-bound portfolio. He asked, without looking up, "Your Aunt Emily didn't leave you her butterfly collection after all, did she, sir?" Henry scoffed. "No, left the whole bloody lot to her dogs. I ask you, what's a Leonberger going to do with a spotted fritillary? Not that I..." "Say, why do you ask?" Jackson gave a distant smile, spectacles on the end of his nose. "Just taking care of the necessaries, sir." Henry sank back into the leather. Jackson's greatest attribute as employee and confidant was his absolute discretion. but that lost its charm when one hadn't a clue what he was talking about. Henry wanted to press for details, but he'd missed his chance when he woke up. To ask what the hell was going on now would make him look like a bloody idiot. And in front of Benjamin. The morning mist was beginning to vanish as the sun cleared the trees. If they were heading to Cricky's place, it couldn't be bad news. No one had a bad word against Cricky after all. Just a solid member of the gang, old Cricky. But then, why was there this unassailable sense of doom hanging over him? Why was his stomach wrenched into an impenetrable knot? It wasn't just the hangover. Goodness knows his body was trained to withstand those. But he carried a very definite sense of apprehension that he could not explain. He cursed the club, damned himself. He always lost his memory when he mixed brandy with gin, and then bought beer, wine. The car turned onto a muddy dirt road which led to a clearing dominated by an enormous oak tree, flush with the brawn of spring. Henry could see Cricky standing beneath the tree, head tilted skyward, no doubt trying to identify the birds singing their morning reveille in the branches above. It was a testament to Cricky's oblivious self-belief that he stood still despite the enormous bird droppings plummeting to the ground all around him. Henry clambered inelegantly out of the car, eager to breathe the fresh air, while Benjamin stood to attention by the door. "Good luck, sir," said the chauffeur, with only a hint of a smirk on his face. Jackson was opening the boot when Cricky appeared and shook Henry's hand. All he said was, "You came!" his wince not betraying whether he thought this was a good thing or not. "Yes," replied Henry, with a grave inflection that he hoped would convey authority. "We were thinking the other side of the tree. It's level, and the sun will be on your left." "Very good," said Henry, imagining a cricket match, a life drawing, or a ritual sacrifice. He turned to call for Jackson, but found him standing 2 feet away, solemnly holding a long, hinged mahogany box in both hands, like a 4-foot jewelry case. "Got a cigarette?" asked Henry. With a gentle nod, Jackson produced a cigarette from his breast pocket, put it in Henry's mouth, and lit it, all without losing hold of the heavy-looking box. "Righto," said Cricky. "Ready?" He was addressing Jackson rather than Henry. Henry was led around the tree, puffs of smoke trailing him. Cricky walked with a reluctant gait that avoided straight lines. "Saw a cormorant fly over this morning," he said. "Can't think where from. Nearest water of any size is Longchurch." He was making small talk, out of character, and unconvincing. It made Henry feel like a child being led to the deathbed of a sick relative. As they rounded the tree, 2 more figures came into view. The first, standing still and straight, was middle-aged and immaculately groomed. He was holding a box similar to Jackson's, but his was open and empty. The second figure Henry recognized at once, even at a distance. Tall, square jaw, tousled hair, and a muscular chest shown off by a baggy shirt open to the navel, libertine style. Barclay. He was lunging this way and that, throwing out short, decisive grunts, thrusting, swinging, and slicing with a basket-hilted smallsword that was in his left hand. Cricky chuckled. "Look at him. Wouldn't know that he hasn't slept, would you? I'll see if he's ready." And he skipped over to Barclay, eager to get away. Henry grasped Jackson's shoulder. "Jackson, tell me, what's in that box?" Jackson didn't lose his impassive cool. Your father's sword, sir. The spadroon. The spadroon? The rapier was a little worse for wear, I'm afraid. And I'm to use it, am I? It would be prudent, sir. And why is that? The swords were agreed upon, sir. Henry inhaled a breath and then spat it out with a shout. Jackson, what the fuck is this about? Sir, tell me what is going on, man. The stakes could not be higher. You are engaged in a duel with Mr. Barclay, sir, at your invitation. Henry almost spoke, but didn't, so Jackson went on. It seems last night at the club you took issue with Mr. Barclay's character and demanded satisfaction from him. He accepted on the condition that he choose the weapon. Henry recalled that Barclay had 2 Olympic medals in fencing. Mr. Barclay suggested a fight until first blood, but you insisted, quite adamantly, I understand, on a duel to the death. I, of course, am your second and have taken care of the necessaries. Your will has been drawn up, with a share of your estate going to your cousin Jemima's social enterprise, the Shoes for Bangladesh affair. Mr. Crichton's offered his grounds as the site, and I must say the weather could not be better. Jackson punctuated the speech by clicking open the box to reveal a handsome sword. The blade was sprinkled with dust, and Henry's family crest was engraved in the hilt. Henry stared at it like a chicken before a diving bell. He heard an equine guffaw. Barclay was laughing with Cricky, standing in a masculine pose that let the sword dangle casually at his side. When his eyes met Henry's, the smile turned to a disdainful scowl. Henry's mind was racing. He never liked Barclay. That was true enough. His loudness, his arrogance, the way he always seemed to take up more than his share of space in a room. But he didn't hate him. He didn't hate anyone enough to formally arrange their mutilation, especially so early in the morning. He picked up the spadroon, probably for the first time in his life. Jackson produced a handkerchief and deftly polished the blade, revealing to Henry his own reflection in the thin metal. His face had never seemed so small or so bright. Suddenly, a dormant decisiveness swelled through the hangover, and he knew exactly why he was there. It wasn't about being drunk, or hating anyone, or even satisfying honor. No. This was the fruition of an idea that had been running beneath his entire waking life. An unacknowledged, unuttered understanding that he simply didn't deserve the life that had been given to him. The inherited wealth, the constant comfort, the freedom to indulge any whim or idea, the lifetime diet of quality food, the fussily attentive staff, the space to swing his arms, the access all areas past that was his surname, the respect he drew from people who didn't even like him, and the complete absence of the 101 things that ordinary people must have battled against every single day. It had all been laid out for him, immaculately prepared and delicately maintained, like a theatre performance full of sleight of hand and wirework. He didn't see the stress, labor, and toil behind the scenes because his job was merely to enjoy it as its due. And that was an injustice that would prevail as long as people like him maintained their success. The challenge to Barclay, he knew, was not just a drunken dare. Unbound by the tether of sobriety, he had seized the opportunity to do the most heroic act available to him. Give it all up. Not just the lifestyle, but the life. Jackson, with a gentle hand on his arm, pulled Henry out of his reverie. Are you sure you're feeling all right, sir? Henry looked Jackson in the eyes, bent forward, and vomited once, with a full-throated cholera purr that rang through the morning air. Then he nodded, and, grinning a wide grin, lifted the spadroon above his head, swung it once for good measure, and marched into the morning mist.